Welcome to our June 27, 2020 Spring Rights Literary Festival preview event. I am Robin Schwartz, Program and Grant Director of the Community Arts Partnership, located in Ithaca, New York. Spring Rights is one of our many programs, along with our other services, which include grants, which is a big part of what we do, workshops, and other artist support. For more information about CAP, Community Arts Partnership, you can visit our website at artspartner.org. That's ARTS partner.org. The full Spring Rights Literary Festival was originally scheduled for May of 2020 and is now scheduled as a virtual event for November. The full festival will feature workshops, performances, panels, and readings, and will most likely feature about 30 events over 3 days with about 70 writers. Tonight's event features local writers and performers who are part of the full festival. You'll hear 8 readings by the following writers in this order. Melanie Conroy Goldman, reading from her novel A Likely World. Dr. Nia Nunn, reading her spoken word piece A Black Woman Breathing. Bob Prohl, reading from his novel The Nobody People. Emily Sanders Hopkins, reading from her nonfiction advice column Emily Writes Back. Sing Treese and Kenneth Mclaurel performing If Strange Fruit Must Die and Say Something, both examples of Moetry, their unique blend of music and poetry. Yvonne Fisher reading from My Life on Fire, A Chronicle of Aging, which is part essay, slam poetry, and humor. Soraya Khan reading from her memoir tentatively titled My First Country, and Jen Tennant reading from Dwelling, about houses, abandonment, and memory. We'll start in a minute, but first I'd like to introduce you to CAP's Executive Director, Megan Barber.
Thanks, Robin. It's great to be with all of you this evening. My heart is happy to see that we're finding ways to share the human experience through art, even when we can't physically be together. I'm really looking forward to sharing this time together tonight. And before we continue, I'd like to invite each of you to make a donation in support of this year's Spring Rights Literary Festival. Your contribution will directly support payment for this year's amazing lineup of local writers. The suggested donation is $25 or more, and donations of any amount are warmly appreciated. You can visit our website's donate page to find the link or instructions for sending a check. And with that, I'll turn the mic back over to Robin, who will introduce our first writer.
Thank you, Megan. Let's start. Melanie Conroy Goldman is the author of The Likely World, a novel to be published by Red Hen Press in 2020. She is a professor of creative writing at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. She was a founding director of the Trias Residency for Writers. Her fiction has been published in Southern Review, Story Quarterly, and anthologies from Morrow and St. Martin's, and online at venues such as mcsweeney's.net. She also volunteers at a maximum security men's prison with the Cornell Prison Education Program. Her work is represented by Bill Clegg at the Clegg Agency. She lives in Ithaca, New York, with her husband, daughter, and stepdaughters. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Spring Rights and to all the great readers that are part of this evening, and to Hardy and to Megan for helping to organize it. I'm going to be reading from the 3rd chapter of my forthcoming novel, The Likely World. I hope you like it, and if you do, I hope you'll consider joining me for the book launch on August 4th, which is going to take place at the Finger Lakes Drive-In, and which is going to be produced by Mickey Quinn, and is going to involve some conversation with Bob Prohl. There'll be free swag, and you can find out more at melanieconroy-goldman.com. So this, as I said, is from the 3rd chapter. The protagonist is sober for just about 29 days from a fictional drug called Cloud. And on the evening of her 30th day sober, a man shows up in her driveway and brings her to the brink of relapse. Cloud has memory properties that make it hard for her to recall her past, but haven't erased many of the emotions that go along with it. And here we go. Emily meets me early for the Monday meeting. We stand with the others in little clumps behind the church. I can't help thinking this semicircle of paving was made for the hearses to bring the corpses to their own funerals. But maybe this is where brides drive their horse and carriages, up to the door and away in a shower of rice. What do I know of church life on weekends? I'm just trying to make it through another day. It's 50 degrees with occasional gusts. Still cold, but bright and sunny. Since this is Boston, weather like this, none of us have our coats on. I'm about to get my 30-day chip. You look like crap, though, says Emily, by way of encouragement. I was up late, as you may recall. You want to do it how you've always done it, hanging on by the skin. You think you can outsmart it, but willpower isn't how sober happens. You understand? I do. She's perched on the stone retainer wall, huffing a cigarette. It was a big thing in the recovery community when they made cloud illegal, a debate, and you'll still meet people who will tell you cloud addict never shot anyone, who will tell you you can still work your program and eat cloud, but the Monday noon meetings are a good place for people who've been through it to come. Once you've lived with cloud for 5 years, for 10, you learn that it's not benign, that just like any of the other monsters that drive people to church function rooms to tell their stories, cloud wants to eat your life. It wants to take your precious things and turn them into muck, to rot every good thing out of your brain. We've barely survived. We are all of us miraculous. I hear the conversations around me. Who's made it through the visit with Child Protective Services, with his parole officer, with her drunk mom. There's a new girl, teenaged, with pink hair, picked acne, and quick-bitten nails. She's here on court order, talking too fast to Jim, a 16-year-old favorite among the grandma junkies, sober since he was 13. So they drop her at the mall with her 11-year-old sister. She's supposed to look after the sister, and whatever, 11. I took the subways by myself at that age, but the parents are overprotective. So my friend is going to keep an eye. Anyway, an hour 45, the parents come to get them, and the sister is gone. The parents are like, "Where's Shayna?" And my friend is like, "Who? I don't know who you mean." Panic, 911, the whole deal. Eventually, they locate little Shayna in the security office, eating Starlight Mints and watching people pick their nose on the security monitors. My friend had turned her in like a lost coat. "She keeps following me," my friend said of her sister. "She won't let me alone." The boy shakes his head. "How many hits did your friend eat?" The pink-haired girl doesn't know. Eventually, though, she comes down. "It was the drugs talking. I'm so sorry. Of course I love little Shayna." Everyone goes back to the country club and lives happily ever after. "Except, not really," says Jim. "No," says the girl. "Not really." The Monday noon meeting isn't vast like the Tuesday night one, doesn't run to the hundreds, but on this particular blustery March day, there are probably 40 people in the room. Cloud is a gradual drug. It took a very long time to wreck me, but also I lost something small each time. From the very beginning, the slow catastrophe had begun. The pink-haired girl goes to the mic, one of those rehab enthusiasts who take to meetings like babies to the boob, but don't always have the staying power. She's still bitching about her roommate in the inpatient program, how spoiled she is, how crap her sobriety, but the pink-haired girl is no poverty line case study herself. It takes insurance to get into those private programs. Even though the rich don't have it easier, the money boosts your percentage of success, oils the wheels of grace. I watch the girl talk, but my attention wanders. Somewhere in the gathered group, the crowd of 35 or 40, there's someone I should be paying attention to. I feel it, like the flicker of my old cloud sense, the thing that made me so good at details when I was high, which is the same thing which woke me to the car in my driveway last night. I scan the crowd, but some people blur or don't quite become people. It's a kind of face blindness that happens to us, cloud people. Anyone can turn into a stranger. Any person you might meet might harbor your secrets, and you'd never even know. I don't do commitments. I don't tell my story. At my first meeting, when I asked Emily to be my sponsor, I told her the condition was I wasn't going to put on sentimental public displays of penitence. This was over coffee at the Dunkies across the street and not technically even a meeting. How it happened. In the mornings, when I was trying not to use, I would stroll Junie on these epic, 5-mile walks. I always ended up in this neighborhood. Nostalgia, probably. Then I'd stroll Junie around in circles, circle after circle, fists whitening on the plastic handles of the baby jogger. Emily saw me, a strung-out mom, hovering by the meeting entrance, and just started walking beside me. "What are you going to say to yourself when you come to the end?" she asked me. It was the first damn thing she ever said, and she read me just like that. Are you going to say, "I got really close. I came to the door, but I just couldn't go inside"? I told her to F off, to mind her own business. "Look at your baby," said Emily. There was Junie, sucking on her cracked pacifier and not complaining. She's watching you already, you know. It's not like with an infant. She's learning how to be. A cracked pacifier, Emily told me, provides no satisfaction to a toddler. The hole's too big. They're just getting air. It's out of habit, Emily said, if she's still sucking on it, or maybe something else. Like what? I got a kid, she said. Big boy, hormones, pimples, practically impossible to love, but, I do. Even at her age, what is she, 14 months? 18, I said. She's, whatever, a little late on the development. Emily nodded, no judgment, though God knows I deserve to be judged. Even at that age, she said, they know how to fake it for you. That it's okay, even when it's terrible. So it was Junie, quiet in the stroller, that made Emily willing to take me on, even on my crappy terms. And here I am. When they call out 30 days, I raise my hand, walk to the front, but I don't take the mic. Emily waits till they hand me the chip. Then she slings her arm around my shoulder and pulls me in. "Skin of your teeth," she says, which is Boston for congratulations. It's meaningful to hold the object in my hand. It has a certain weight, a certain thingness to it. I haven't lived a life of acquisition where I've gotten to keep much, accrued cabinets full of Lenox or Limoges. But there are one or two objects that matter to me. Maybe now, this chunk of metal is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. That was awesome. Next up is Dr. Nia Nunn. Dr. Nia Nunn is Associate Professor in the Department of Education at Ithaca College. She teaches and researches in the areas of Black girl liberation, Black feminist methodology, pedagogy, educational psychology, and socially conscious performing arts curriculum. She is a performer, scholar, mother, activist, and the president of the board of directors at the Southside Community Center in Ithaca. Dr. Nia Nunn has expertise as a teacher, teacher trainer, school psychologist, and director of programs designed to empower and uplift the voices of young people, particularly Black women and girls. And now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Nia Nunn. And I forgot to mention that if you go to springrights.org, you'll see the lineup for tonight if you want to see who else is speaking. Sorry about that. Nia Nunn.
Greetings, everyone. Robin, thank you for the invitation. I timed this and just finished it this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's a piece that's called Deep Breath. Part 1. Loving revolution and the new white people. I take a deep breath as I teach you to think, to feel, to do. Vulnerable explosions, paralyzing truths. My Black body is not disposable. I am not your Negro, and fuck, I am not your minority. I am a member of the global majority, a woman of African descent, a Black mother in America. And so the white addiction to Black death, the demonizing of darkness, this shit, it just hits different. I take a deep breath as I process my response to your request to diversify your white world. God forbid anti-racist work becomes the new whitewash diversity, filled with spirit-murdering domains. Black body property mentality remains, even recycled, so don't. Don't tell me you want to diversify your board, your program, your event, your place. Are you even ready for our brilliance? Or are you just wanting Black bodies in the space? No. Tell me you have examined the existing white supremacist cultural elements of disgrace. Tell me you are engaged and committed to anti-racist practices, interrupting social hierarchies as a base. Tell me you are eager to listen and invest in ideas, ways of thinking, being, and breathing outside of what you think you can trace. I take a deep breath as I witness the evolution of different kinds of white people. What kind of white people are you? Are you the kind of white people of the old white way, explicitly dangerous day by day? Or are you regular white people, an oblivious meritocratic myth, the silent, privileged, complacent, a shut door? You who carry a false sense of superiority, you are just as dangerous, if not more. I take a deep breath as I recognize that some of these new white people are just anti-Trump at the core. I'll take it. The statements, the white woke-offs, receipts galore. As dark people, you can count on us to revolt. You can count on us to resist. But eradicating racism is ultimately up to the racist. So some of these new white folks have already been down. Ally graduates from long ago, white comrades on the front lines, even raising their babies to know. The Ashas, the Munas, the Annabelles, and Indigos, a new kind of white people I'm watching grow, watching know, truths untold, conditioned to sing, scream, shout, to feel Black joy, a completely different kind of white people. The new white people know that they are being lied to, that they are taught to fear Blackness. The new white people know that their superiority is a myth, allowing space for humanity at last. Regular white people and people of the old white ways, y'all are outdated. Even the new white people have no patience for your ass. Loving revolution and the new white people. I take a deep breath. I take a deep breath. Part 2, loving Blackness religiously. I take a deep breath as I honor specificity unapologetically. Black girl femme bliss. Oh, the melanated magic you bring into every space that you enter. Alchemy of Black girlhood, face to face with this pandemic. Lethal consequences of white supremacy, evidenced by COVID and police, both killing us very differently. Say her name. Honor specificity unapologetically. Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, Ayanna Jones, Tanisha Anderson, Rakia Boyd, Rhea Milton, Remy Fells. Say the names that aren't said, stories unread, silenced, overlooked, unarmed, murdered Black, cis, and trans women and girls. Look up her campaign. The Crenshaw domain, clear intention and a purposeful route. I take a deep breath. As I sort through these limited political options, all I can think about is my desire to handpick the Black girls I'd like to replace these politicians with next. Fantasize a new society where all of our Black bodies are in fact safe. creative potential protected, a new society where Black businesses, Black ownership are not novel by any means, healthy food, authentic healthcare, green lining, reparations indeed, rebuild the Tulsas, Rosewoods, Beacon Hills, and Congo squares. When we build Black unity, we can keep our uniqueness alive, and our collective possibilities will thrive. Oh, the magic we make simply by touch. Black is bold, beautiful, brilliant, and such. I take a deep breath as I crisis teach, holding college students accountable, distance learning debacles failed, and my own disengaged young people. Maybe homeschooling is where it's at anyway. 20 Black healers to teach, to channel in. Shirley Chisholm, Fred Hampton, Ida B. Wells, and more taught each day. Curriculum of consciousness, feeding the soul and leading the way. I take a deep breath as I honor my ancestors, spiritual guides, Black women of Ithaca, community mothers, Mama Scott, Sandra Washington, Diane Sams, Bev Martin, Dorothy Cotton. You left a blueprint, specific methodology, a formula of modeling true compassion for humanity. You left a blueprint, specific methodology, a formula for liberating Black people. You left a blueprint, specific methodology, a formula for loving the self and loving Blackness religiously. I take a deep breath. I take a deep breath. Part 3, loving myself radically. I take a deep breath as I stand naked in the forest, a body stretched 3 times, marks of deep love like golden branch, cinnamon sparkled crevices. Root chakra balance, blossom ready to receive, grounded and grateful, power, possibilities and promise, good health, whose access, whose privilege, daily doses of sleep, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, again and again, sleep oh so good. I take a deep breath as I get loved up with fierce abundance, prosperity, stillness, Black girl and Om circles a divine disruption, a disruption from all this shit in the world, this trauma, small t, capital T, terrors, but you, such gratitude. Janine Staples, Koya Webb, Lauren Ash, intentional curations, blueprints for healing and expansion, a hunger and a feeding, intense spiritual downloads, awakening a Black femme tradition, a creator honored, aligned higher self, ancestors speak, just listen. I take a deep breath as I sit by the creek, zone of serenity, sunrise salutations, deep pigeon poses bring tears, intuition speaks, just listen, worth genuinely proclaimed, higher vibration, revolutionary supreme love, an orgasmic life, an orgasmic journey indeed, loving thyself radically. I take a deep breath. I take a deep breath.
Wow. Well, I mean, revolutionary supreme love indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Nia Nunn. And next up, we have Bob Prohl. Bob Prohl has worked as a bookseller and programming director for Buffalo Street Books, a DJ, a record store owner, and a bartender. He was a 2012 New York Foundation for the Arts Fellow in Fiction and a 2013 resident at the Saltonstall Arts Colony right here in Ithaca. He's the author of 100,000 Worlds, so The Nobody People, and its sequel, The Somebody People, coming out this September. Please welcome Bob Prohl.
Thank you so much. And thank you to CAP for inviting me. And thanks to Poets and Writers, who is, they're paying us for being here. It's always nice to get paid. And thank you for everybody who's here. I'm so honored to be in such an amazing group of writers speaking at you this evening. Obviously sad that we are not doing this in person, but I hope you'll join us at the after party, which I think is in Google Hangouts. I'm gonna read from The Nobody People. This is actually the UK edition, but it matches my shirt. I taped mine earlier so that there won't be like internet lags, and so I'm gonna hand it off to me. Hey guys, it's me, Bob. I'm gonna read to you guys for a bit. I think I just introduced myself, which I will do on Sunday, which is in the future. Right now it is Thursday, which is in the present right now, but by Sunday will be in the past. I'm going to read a little bit from The Nobody People, which is my book that is currently out in paperback. Came out a couple weeks ago. But I'm going to read from my beat up, marked up reading copy. So, welcome to my office, by the way. This is from somewhere in the middle of the book, but it actually takes place sort of before the events of the book. The day the FBI came to arrest Fahima Deeb's father, there were boot prints on the rug from the homeland raid that took her uncle. Fahima and her family lived in a Polish neighborhood on Buffalo's north side. A handful of Lebanese families happened to live on the same street, drawn together the way immigrant families were in a new place, like droplets of water on glass. Her parents and uncle co-owned a kebab stand at the Polish market, a rundown building on Broadway and Gibson that had been the province of Polish Catholic vendors, but now housed soul food diners and halal butchers, along with kielbasa and pierogi. Fahima worked at the stand from the time she could walk. She'd chat with the babcias who ran the bakery and called her the angel of the market, or with Eva, who sold ropes of hair extensions and gave Fahima a leopard print shawl that Fahima's mother wouldn't let her wear as a hijab. Most of her time was spent in the kitchen, shaping ground lamb into patties and laying them on broad metal sheets. When she was 10, an idea came to her for a machine that could scoop lamb from the plastic tub and mold it into a patty. She'd been dreaming of machines for weeks. In the dreams, one piece of a mechanism floated in a field of white. Other pieces swooped in and attached themselves until they completed an elaborate apparatus. Fahima didn't know the function of those gadgets. They faded when she woke up. She looked forward to the dreams. They were better than the others, the dreams of the big, crowded room. Those dreams felt like drowning to Fahima, who was already prone to social anxiety, but the dream of the meat machine stuck with her long enough she drew a schematic on the classified ads while she chomped on dry Cheerios the next morning. Her uncle Muhar, who lived with them, performed a late and hasty fajr in the corner of the kitchen. "What are you working on, Habibi?" he asked, looking over her shoulder. Fahima covered up the drawings with her hand, then moved it to show him. "For the shop?" Fahima nodded. "You'll put yourself out of a job." He shook her shoulder and left her to finish. That night, after Isha, her parents settled in front of the television. She showed Muhar the completed drawings. He was like a second father to her, sometimes kinder than her own father. He agreed to help build this dream thing of hers. They worked on the device in the shed in the backyard. Fahima told Muhar what they needed, and Muhar acquired parts. Auto junkyards in the suburbs, mail-order catalogs, the appliance repair place down on Hurdle Avenue. Anything Fahima asked for materialized and was slotted into the meat machine, which came together as it had in her dream, piece by piece. When it was finished, it looked like a car engine with spider legs, exactly as she'd dreamed it. It was the first of Fahima's dream machines made real, and it was beautiful, more beautiful than a person could ever be. Muhar made Fahima promise not to tell anyone the device's purpose until it made its debut at the market on Palm Sunday. It was the busiest weekend of the year, when all the babcias in the city descended on the market to buy butter lambs and crown roasts. The perfect moment to show off Fahima's dynamo. The device sat in the shed for 2 weeks, covered by a half-dozen prayer blankets Fahima's mother had deemed unfit for use but too dear to be thrown out. Muhar brought half the neighborhood, Lebanese and Polish alike, around to see it. He'd lift one sajada for one group, expose a single arachnid limb, and another for a second group, showing a complex of gears. Within the neighborhood, the meat machine was like the elephant essayed by the 3 blind men. People argued and speculated about its purpose, its appearance, and the likelihood it would burn down the whole market come Palm Sunday. Maybe it was Mr. Przborowski, who ran the appliance store on Hurdle and sold Muhar odd bits of wire and gear over the previous month, who called Homeland Security. Or one of the neighbors who hadn't been invited to preview the device, but watched it from behind curtains as Muhar and Fahima went out into the shed day after day. It was 2003, and people were wary of Muslims tinkering in sheds and garages and basements. Regardless of who made the call, Homeland Security agents, bulletproof vests over their dark blue suits, broke down the Deeb's door one night in April as the family rolled up their prayer rugs after Maghrib. The smell of cumin was thick in the air from the pot of fool her mother had on the stove all day. The men dragged her uncle out the front door,
His heels left trenches in the living room carpet. In the morning, her mother pitched the contents of the pot out the back door in the yard, killing a patch of grass in the shape of a tulip blossom. Her parents met with a Yemeni lawyer from the suburbs. Muslims had developed a cross-national immune system for random and senseless arrests. An envelope of cash appeared in the mailbox. Donations collected at an Iranian mosque on the north side. Egyptians and Turks and Pakistanis Fahima had never met showed up on the doorstep with Tupperware containers full of food. Every Amma in the block had a theory about who had sold Muhar out, although no two agreed. They drank endless pots of tea with her mother while Fahima finished homework in the living room, convinced that the women could read the guilt on her like the tea leaves in the bottom of their cups. Not long after the machine dreams started, Fahima began to hear the appliances around the house and at the market. They weren't precisely talking, but she could sense feelings coming off them along with their radiant heat. The industrial mixer that blended the lamb, egg, and spices pined to be used each Saturday morning when Fahima and her mother arrived. The aging fridge understood there was no rest coming for it and wanted only to die. In the days after her uncle's arrest, a voice rose out of the soft clamor of the house. It was the desktop computer in her father's office, which he used to keep the Stan's accounts and email family members in Beirut. It called to Fahima. It said it could help. Her parents off with the lawyer again, Fahima sat at the computer in the empty house. It didn't tell her what to do, but it guided her hand like the planchette of a Ouija board. First to the public website for Homeland Security, and then through a series of logins deep into the site's working guts. From within, you could access everything. The computer urged her forward toward her uncle's name. Fahima marked Muhardib as for immediate release. Homeland caught the change in Muhardib's status and called in the FBI to investigate the hack. They traced the IP address to Fahima's father's computer. As soon as the Deebs heard the knock, interrupting dinner this time, Fahima knew what it was. "Baba, I made a mistake," she said, too softly to be heard as the newly replaced door came down. The men, this time in black suits, grabbed her father out of his chair. Fahima screamed, "It was me, it was me." Her mother, worried the FBI would believe her, held Fahima around the waist with one arm and clamped the other hand over her mouth. With the second arrest, the outpouring of community support ceased. It was impossible the government had erred twice, was the consensus. Even if it had been a mistake, the family was bad luck, likely to be catching. The Deebs, now only Fahima and her mother, were ostracized. With the house empty and the kebab stand without customers, the machine voices got louder. Fahima's ability to filter them diminished. She broke down in the lunch line, yelling at the soda machine to leave her alone. The ambulance came directly to the school, and Fahima was paraded into it in front of her classmates by paramedics who held her by the arms. The scene resembled the ones she'd seen twice before, and Fahima felt a moment of kinship with her father and uncle, prisoners, all three. At the hospital, medical devices were a cacophony in Fahima's head. They existed in a constant state of panic, their beeps and bells, external signs that these monitors and defibrillators and imagers were undergoing a barrage of people's pain. In oncology, 2 floors above the psychiatric ward where Fahima was housed, a husband flatlined. His wife picked up the heart monitor and threw it on the ground, kicking at it in a blind rage as nurses tried to resuscitate him. Fahima felt each blow as if it were delivered to her own body. She cowered on the floor while upstairs, the new widow savaged the hapless piece of equipment. Fahima was sent to Lakeview, an institution in central New York. She was catatonic by then. Lakeview was the best her mother could afford, which blessedly meant it hadn't been able to purchase technology since the late 1980s. In the quiet, Fahima's mind began to heal. It was 3 years before her thoughts felt coherent again, before she could keep all voices but her own out of her head. While she was unresponsive, the orderlies had taken her hijab. She asked Ms. Gundrun, the faculty's director of youth therapy, if she could have it back, and Ms. Gundrun told her the other patients found it strange and upsetting. The next day in the common room, when one of her fellow patients switched the television to an evangelist station at a deafening volume, Fahima shrieked, "Turn it off." "Ms. Deeb, there's no need to shout," said the orderly on duty. "I find it strange and upsetting," Fahima said. "It makes them feel safe," the orderly said, gesturing to every patient who wasn't Fahima. Fahima swallowed hard and nodded. "You're right," she said. "I'm sorry." She went to the bookshelf, which contained only dated magazines. After a pause to give herself plausible deniability, Fahima told the television to shut off, and it did. The room erupted in screams. Fahima buried her smile in a copy of Good Housekeeping. That's it. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. That was great. So up next, we have Emily Sanders Hopkins. Emily Sanders Hopkins is a writer and illustrator. whose cartoons have appeared in the New Yorker magazine and other national publications. She is the author of Emily Writes Back, an advice column, a book ghostwriter and essayist. She has an essay called Exotic in the critically acclaimed 2020 anthology, Pretty Bitches. Here, without further ado, is Emily Sanders Hopkins.
Hi, thank you, Hardy. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Oh, thank you, awesome. This is the book that Hardy mentioned. I'm Emily Sanders Hopkins, and I'm very thrilled to be here, and I was thrilled to be invited by CAP. And thank you so much, Megan, and Rachel, and everyone, and sorry, Robin. We've all gotten together and decided to get your name wrong tonight. I'm going to read from my advice column. I have an advice column called Emily Writes Back. And I'll do, like you would expect, I'll start and read the letter that I got, and then I'll read my reply. Here's the letter I got. And I'm reading it from my computer because this is a website, emilywritesback.com. Dear Emily, it is spring here in the South. We all hang out in our front yards, grilling and chilling. But there is one problem. My neighbor across the street has started laying in the sun in her thong bikini on a daily basis, and she works from home. Then it continues all weekend long. She walks around the yard with her butt glaring, bending over frequently to kiss her boyfriend, or just walks out to get the mail. I need to know what to say to her to get her to put on some sort of sarong at least. I am very uncomfortable with it as I sit in my yard. And my husband's eyes pop out all day, every day now. Help! Becky, signed Becky in North Carolina. That was more of a West Virginia accent because that's where I'm from, but that was my best try at a Southern accent. Here's my reply to Becky with her problem with the naked neighbor. Dear Becky in North Carolina, I read your letter aloud to Marshall, it's my husband, and he said, there's only one solution. She must commit to also wearing a thong bikini outside for an entire month to give the neighbor a taste of her own medicine. It would also give your husband something else to look at. The only part of Marshall's idea that I agree with is that you shouldn't say anything. It's a free country and she can wear whatever she wants. But I'm so sorry this is happening. I'm sorry you are feeling uncomfortable in your own yard. That sucks. When I tried to put myself in your shoes, imagining a pretty woman walking, bending, lying almost naked in the yard across the street, I realized that yours might not be a question about insecurity and jealousy, as I had originally thought, but about feeling disrespected. Thong Lady isn't respecting the tone of your neighborhood. She's changing it. It would be easy to dominate her in a tone change arms race. You could raise the Chinese flag, cover the lawn in pink flamingos, and start a drum circle cult. You could incessantly blow soap bubbles, paint your house dark purple, play Lebanese pop loudly on a boombox, or plant corn. You could build a roller coaster in your yard, something that several people, including children working alone, have managed to do. You could invite 6 gorgeous volleyball players who have been sheltering together and tested negative for coronavirus. This is very current. Over and have them play sandpit volleyball right in her face. There are all sorts of things you have a total right to do that might make your neighbor pause and wonder, where am I? Is this still home? But would it make you feel better? I doubt it. My advice is to stop thinking about her altogether. Instead, think about the things that jazz you up and make you feel good. Or try this. Pretend your neighbor is your long-lost half-sister your father never told you about, and that she grew up with a very strict single mother who was obsessed with the idea of modesty. She never let her daughter wear cool clothes like the other kids. Instead, your half-sister had to wear long prairie skirts before they were in, and stupid ruffled long sleeve shirts. The only jeans she was allowed to wear were baggy overalls. She just wanted to be a normal girl and go to the beach and have friends, but her mother told her that it was a sin and disgusting to God to show your near naked body to people you weren't married to. Is that why you're not married, Mom? She asked her mother, because you don't want anybody to see your body? I'm not married, her mother said, because my one true love in this life decided to be with someone else. Your half-sister assumed her mom meant Billy Ray Cyrus, whom she dated in high school and who she'd hinted was your half-sister's biological father. One day, looking through her mother's things, your half-sister, your neighbor, found her birth certificate with your father's name on it. And she asked her mother about him. Who is Robert so-and-so? And her mother admitted that he was her father, not Billy Ray Cyrus. Don't go looking for him, though, her mom told her. He has a real family and real daughters, and the last thing he would want is to have some bastard daughter show up looking for attention. And so instead of reconnecting with her father she never knew, she instead clung to a series of domineering boyfriends from church. Bradley with the deep voice and the bad breath. Mike, who wanted to become a minister and seemed to be sizing her up sizing up her first lady material. And Derek, who was crazy about sports to the extent that she had to ask him, are you pretending to care this much about basketball, or are you actually depressed that North Carolina is out of the tournament? These were all young men who'd grown up with her mother's same idea about the sinfulness of skin, and pretty soon she'd have to marry one of them probably. But somehow, last year, she got the courage and she decided to break up with a fourth bad boyfriend, Luke, who sold real estate and who was more charming and funny and helpful to everyone else on the planet than he was to her, it felt like. When they were out with friends, he was so funny and magnetic, but as soon as they got into his car to go home, his face would go all stony, and he'd just flip through songs on his car stereo and not say anything to her. I'm going to find someone who was fun to hang out with and nice to me, she decided. And if I don't find someone like that, then I'll be single, which is fine too. Through a friend at work, she did meet a new kind of guy, Dustin from Texas. She can't get enough of Dustin. He's sort of a nerd. He works in IT and he collects Star Wars figurines. But they love the same things. Browsing junk shops for funny, kitschy things, organizing their house, watching science and home improvement videos on YouTube, making up cocktail recipes and baking. And Dustin believes in God and goes to church. Only his church and his God don't have any fashion opinions at all. And that's the boyfriend that she lives with now across the street from you. For the first time in her life, she feels really and truly happy. She feels like she's coming out of her shell, becoming more of the free, sexy, relaxed person she wants to be. This is a great neighborhood, a cute house, and lately she gets to work from home in her string bikini and drink lemonade out in the sun. See, she's waving at you now. Wave back and give her a little smile. If you guys become friends, you could give her some hand-me-down sarongs later. Now, if that story that I just read to you is not convincing, please come up with a better one. Anything that makes a soft spot in your heart for this bare-assed neighbor, so the very sight of her no longer ruins your day. And tell your husband to keep his eyes on you. Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you so much, guys.
Unmute. Thank you. That was so great. So next up is a video of Kenneth Mclaurel.
My neighbors. My neighbors. How do I mute myself? Sorry.
I'll mute you.
I can hear Kenneth's laugh. Next up is Sing Treese and Kenneth Mclaurel. Sing Treese is a powerful live performer and soul singer. She's an independent recording artist, a playwright, director, actress, singer, songwriter, mother, and wife. Her voice has been called milk and honey to the ears, and you can't help but feel something with every note she sings. She has toured Europe, singing in Hungary, Malta, Norway, Germany, Italy, and even the Vatican twice. She frequently performs locally with a live band. North Carolina native Kenneth Mclaurel has long called himself the funniest person you've never heard of. But his first album, Cutting Up Comedy at the Shop, his kitchen theater show, Southern Fried Ithaca, and Comedy on the Commons is rapidly changing that. He has written plays for the one-minute play festivals at the Kitchen Theater. His project, 10 Short Films About Race, was featured as part of the Spring Rights Literary Festival. Currently, Kenneth and Treese are producing and performing their own show, Singing Notes and Slinging Jokes. And now I'm turning it over to Kenneth.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sing Treese.
And I'm Kenneth Mclaurel.
And together we are Singing Notes
And Slinging Jokes, a unique blend of music, comedy, spoken word, poetry, and love. And today we have two songs for you. The first is from a poem my daughter wrote. She had a particular experience at Loaves and Fishes where she was micro and macro aggression. She processed the experience by writing a poem, and we turned it into the first song you'll hear, Say Something.
And the next song is a rearrangement of the Claude McKay poem, If I Must Die, and The Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, which we call it
If Strange Fruit Must Die.
And we both think this song is extremely meaningful, so please enjoy.
Here you go.
Every time you speak, I see the words as they slip from your lips into my ear, to my mind, to my heart. If they hold any meaning, your words can affect the world, or just you and me. Just say something. 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 I don't like to assume. Something's wrong with you. Just believe I'm listening. Even when you're not speaking.
Sweat drips down my back and turns to melanin as it travels down. I haven't always been black. It was a time I was gold like honey. And my best friend's son had powerful rays that made us both glow. Safari Salama, she said, but that was then. That felt so long ago, my middle passage. I look outside my window as we pass over the Atlantic. I feel like I've made this journey before. Unnamed ghosts who jump from forgotten ships. Unnamed prayers on their lips, pleading for forgiveness that promptly turned silent.
Hey, something's wrong with you. Just believe I'm listening. Hey, even when you're not speaking.
Is this snow? I watch her as she falls from a faultless blue sky until my world begins to glisten white. She seeps into the pores of my skin. I turn from gold to black. I miss my best friend. Snow names me Oreo. I don't know what that means, so I ask. She turns the light on so I see my skin. Snow explains I'm the whitest black person she knows, while images of black suns being drowned by blizzards of bullets in this snowstorm haunts my present. My brother is 13, and I fear the only way to keep him safe is to put him in a bulletproof case. Young girls are handed a straightener and expected to erase their curls and wear their hair straight. There was a time where black meant nothing, but in America, nothing flips on our back, and black becomes everything, and we're reduced to nothing but the color of our skin.
Just say something. Just say something.
we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us in death. Here is fruit for the crows to pluck. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe.
For the rain to gather and for the wind to sow.
Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave.
For the sun to rise and for the trees to the rise.
And for their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow.
Here is a strange and bitter cry.
What though before us lies but an open grave? Like men will face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but bravely, gallantly, defiantly fighting back.
Thank you so much. I'm Centuries.
I'm Kenneth Mclaurel.
And together we're singing those and swinging jokes.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Y'all can check us out, KennethMcLaurel.com, Centuries.com, and anywhere Mickey's at, I will be behind.
Most definitely.
I mean, we have to clap for that. I saw that in person. It was beautiful and so great to hear it again. And next up, we have Yvonne Fisher, and which is great. And Yvonne is a writer, performer, visual artist, and psychotherapist. She has written and performed 2 solo pieces called My Viennese Mother and My Wedding Performance Piece at previous Spring Rights literary festivals, at the Kitchen Theater in Saugerties, New York, and at the Crane Theater in New York City. She has been writing and doing theater and improvisation for 50 years and has stories published in anthologies and journals. And without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Yvonne Fisher. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you everybody. Thank you to CAP and thank you to Poets and Writers. I'm excited to be part of this. Reading 5 short pieces that are part of a longer solo performance piece that I'm working on about my aging process and everything that's happening in the world. So it's pre-recorded. I hope it works out, and thank you again. This first piece is called Spa. I've been to health spa retreats, yoga retreats, raw foods, juice fast, wheatgrass retreats, Costa Rican retreats, Kripalu, Omega, New Age, Buddhist, Zen, Jewish, anything I can to get healthy, calm, balanced, quiet, to detox, to purge, to clean out, to be with like minds, to expand, to live longer, stronger, to have longevity, to live forever, forever and ever and ever and ever. I've been acupunctured, chiropracted, Rolfed, and PT'd. I've been OT'd, LSD'd, tea treed, and Reiki'd. And meanwhile, our planet is decrepit and dying, going to hell or to heaven with the rapture, flying up to God, or going straight down. Text me and I'll meet you there. But first, clean me out, make me pure, make me a servant of your will, clean, thin, healthy, open, transformed, transcended, empty before I die in a blazing fire or drown in a tsunami or choke on the poison air or die from a random germ. Make me strong and clear to withstand what's to come. The beginning of the end. Yes, the house is on fire. Yes, the floods are rising. This is not a show. This is an emergency. This is everything. The world is exploding. Our world. And I'm growing old. My hair is gray and thinning, except when I dye it pink or red or blonde or purple. Still, it's really gray. I have arthritis, tendinitis, bursitis, gingivitis, tinnitus. I've had a broken wrist, broken ankle, broken heart, broken dreams, broken. I have a bad hip, bad knee, tender arches, painful shoulders. I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. Do your shoulders hurt? So what you say? We're all getting old. And indeed we are. Yes, we are. But unfortunately, we're taking the world with us. We're extincting ourselves and others, creatures, animals, bees, plants, trees, going, gone. What are we going to do? Tell me what I need to know. Tell me where I need to go. Tell me what I need to say, what I need to do today. How is it with you? Tell me what to do. Shall we take a walk? Maybe sit and talk? Maybe have some tea? How shall we just be? With us or without us? The world will go on anyway. There's nothing more to say. Denial. I deny, don't ask me why. Head in the sand, I don't understand. Please hold my hand. I can still see the sky. For the kids, I must try. End of the world doesn't fly. Let's eat some apple pie, get away from it all. I can't accept we will fall. Let's go play ball. I'll wait in the hall. No fallout shelter for me. This advice is not for free. Apocalyptic dystopia for a fee. I'll follow you and you follow me. This cannot be our destiny. I deny, don't ask me why. Denial feels good for the sake of the kids. I think I'll stress eat some food. I'm in a bad mood. Just leave me alone. I want to go home, write myself a poem or talk on the phone, anything but the end. Will you be my friend? I feel fine in denial, just for a little while, in denial together, till the very end. My mind. I'm worried about my mind. My mind has a mind of its own. It meanders around, making all kinds of sound and talks to me like it's on the phone. I'm worried about my mind. I look, but I can't find what I came in here for. Oh, where is the door? I can't tell the ceiling from the floor sometimes. I'm worried about my mind. I forget everyone's name, though I'm trying. Can't recognize faces in all kinds of places. Am I crazy or stupid or blind? So worried about my mind. I can't tell my front from behind. I put on my clothes wrong. I can't even sing a song, forgetting the words before long. I can still play ping pong, and Sudoku is fine, but I worry about my mind. If my mind will be gone, will I follow it along through the porthole, or is it the portal? Of my mind and my soul, how I want to be whole, to be well from my head to my toes. I guess nobody knows the nature of mind, but soon we'll all find where the soul goes. I will jump right through time and hope that will be fine, expansive and wide, and maybe I'll see you on the other side. And if I do, please remind me of your name, although by then we'll be one and the same. All soul, all energy, no mind to tame. All source, all love, all the time. Still, I'm worried about my mind. And the last one is called Protest. I've had to revise things. I've revised everything. I went to the protest. I am old and I am white. I went to bear witness. I need to join the fight. I want to be an ally. I want to give support. I stood in the back 6 feet apart. The day was hot. My mask was on. My mask is my shield. I couldn't talk. I couldn't hear the speeches. The crowd was huge, enthusiastic, heartbroken, positive, enraged. Filled with stories and songs and speeches, Black and brown young women took the lead. They shared their experiences of racism and hope and revolution. I was standing in the back so I wouldn't catch COVID. My mask is my shield. They were all so close together. I was standing far apart. The memorial protest for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all the other Black people who have been killed by the police. Protests in every city, in every state, throughout the country. Protests all over the world in solidarity. The energy was palpable. The power was surging. This is a movement. Black Lives Matter. I stood in the back at the edge of the crowd so I wouldn't get the virus. I feel old and white and not so relevant. 50 years of protest and here we are again. This time is historic and terrifying and tender and sacred. We are here together in love and solidarity. We can see the crowd rising, the earth shifting. We can feel the transformation. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Yvonne. I mean, another beautiful, beautiful poem to hear. And what a great, ton of images. Truly, I love that heartbroken, positive, enraged. Anyway, I also am really excited to introduce Soraya Khan, who's up next. And she is the author of the novels Noor, 5 Queens Road, and City of Spies. And she received the best City of Spies received the best international fiction book award. Sharjah International Book Fair, from the Sharjah International Book Fair in 2015. She was awarded a U.S. Fulbright Research Grant to conduct research in Pakistan and Bangladesh, and received a Malahat Review Novella Prize for what became a window into City of Spies. Her nonfiction work has appeared in, among other places, Guernica, Long Reads, and Journal of Narrative Politics. She guest edited the most recent issue of Paper Cuts, an online literary journal initially focused on South Asia. She is the daughter of a Pakistani father and a Dutch mother, was born in Europe and grew up in Pakistan, and now lives in here, Ithaca, with us. Sorry, that makes it sound like I'm her family. Lives in Ithaca with her family. And the rest of us. Thank you very much. Here is Soraya Khan.
Heidi, thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you, Robin and Cap, for doing the organizing of this event during these times. I am going to read from the memoir that I'm currently working on that's tentatively titled My First Country. It's very loosely organized around the cities in my life. And I'm going to be reading about a 5-minute segment from the middle of the draft, and the piece involves more than one city. Naeem was 16 and I was 11, but the real difference in 1973 was that I knew his name and he didn't know mine. Neither of us knew then that our shared life began on a yellow school bus in Islamabad, he in the back, me in the front. His single recollection is that I was the younger sister of a soccer teammate. I have two memories of him. My first is of his wide open grin while he sits with friends in the last row of bus seats. Curly hair falls in waves around his face, and he carries himself with a 16-year-old swagger that is electrifying to those of us whose feet barely reach the floor. To be grown like that one day. My second is of a photograph. He is on the front page of the school newspaper at a sports banquet where he has won an award. The paper is unnaturally white, the black and white photo too dark. He is dressed in a suit, holding a microphone, smiling shyly at his lucky girlfriend. Buried in a box, the folded newspaper accompanied him to all his cities and then ours before it surfaced in Ithaca with a bundle of a girlfriend's drawings. My memory was accurate, except there's nothing shy about his smile. In those days, the city was young, like us. Our time in Islamabad overlapped only a year, but even so, we agree you could almost see C.A. Doxiadis, the city's Greek architect, slowly unfold the city on land the way he might have done with drawings on a desk. Roads rolled out, house foundations dug, markets erected, trees planted. As we looked down from the Margala Hills, where Naeem and his friends rode on motorcycles, and I stood at viewpoint, we didn't imagine Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan riding their armies on the Potwar Plateau, on the edge of which the city was emerging. But always, on a clear day, and in the space of a few minutes on an airplane lifting away from the city, it was possible to see how small the sliver of the ground beneath our feet was. In a miracle of nature, the Margala Hills become the Murray Hills, become the Himalayan mountain range, and the Potwar Plateau, hundreds of miles wide, trickle down to nothing like us. We met again almost a dozen years later in Denver, another young city, this one on almost exactly the other side of the world, along a different mountain range. I spotted his smile from across our graduate school lounge. In the space of a few minutes, we figured out what was true. He'd played soccer with my brother. I'd sat next to his brother in 6th grade, and our parents' homes were a few miles apart along Margala Road. Not long after, we pedaled side by side on bicycles in the Rockies, sometimes with his hand on my lower back to help me up the steepest climbs. My sister Aisha visited during the holidays, and we took her cross-country skiing. And when she got so cold she couldn't move, he put her feet in his armpits to warm them. He packed his wok and knives and spices into an oversized backpack with an aluminum frame and rode his red bicycle to my place to cook elaborate meals for my roommates and me. Eventually, we packed our laundry into his mountain climbing backpack and walked 10 minutes across a small park to a laundromat on Evans to do it together. The first story I wrote in Syracuse was called The Yellow School Bus. Texans chewed tobacco and coughed up brown phlegm. Boys with oily hair spit out of windows that let in hot, dry air. There might as well have been assigned seats. A young girl tried to make sense of it all. Some of it was true, but much of it wasn't, and plenty of what I thought was true had been transformed by memory over time and was not. I think of blonde boys in the back of our bus spitting on bicyclists and pedestrians the same way I think of faded green bus seats, dirty grooves in rubber flooring, and the broken swing of the manual door opening and closing. They were always there. Naeem suggests this wasn't true the year we shared a bus, and in any case, if it were true, the boys would not have all been blonde. I remember it differently, but perhaps the boys were on hiatus then. Lahore moved into me while I sat at my desk in Salve, and Naeem taught a few miles away at Syracuse University. I ate on my grandparents' latticed veranda and sat on the ground next to my grandmother in the outdoor kitchen, listening to the pop of mustard seeds and the sizzle of onions in a black cast iron pan. One of my characters died as I sat on the landing at the top of the stairs of our school-turned apartment building below a huge window beyond which lay the poisoned lake. I remember the stab of sun on my right cheek, the sharpened number 2 pencil in my hand, the old clipboard against my knees, an acrid breeze when the door to the outside opened and Naeem came home. I dreamed of Lahore that night, Onondaga Lake, the backdrop to the buckled stone patio of my grandparents' home, where my character died all over again and smelled of burnt lamb when his funeral pyre was lit. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Soraya. That was amazing. Next up is Jen Tennant. Jen is the artistic director this year of the Spring Rights Literary Festival. She is an associate professor of economics at Ithaca College. Her creative nonfiction has been published in Pleiades, The Smart Set, A Velvet Giant, and Hoxie Gorge Review. And she will tell me if I pronounced any of those incorrectly. And now I'm turning it over to Jen Tennant.
Hi, thank you so much, Robin, and thank you, Cap, and thank you everybody for joining us for this little preview. I wasn't originally going to be part of Spring Rights except for being the artistic director, but when Robin and I were talking about this, she asked if I wanted to join too, which was very kind of her. So I'm a video of me is going to be reading a piece called Dwelling, which originally was an image text piece. I wrote it, and my dear friend, who's a photographer, Noura Qureshi, did the photos that went with it, and that could be seen in this journal called A Velvet Giant. And so now, just have a little background. It's in 3 parts, and the first and the third part is me speaking. Well, it's me speaking all the time. I'm always the I, but the second part is me speaking to Noura, and it is about abandonment and houses and memory. So thank you so much for letting me join, and I hope that you enjoy it. Dwelling. Not only your memories, but the things we have forgotten are housed. Our soul is an abode, and by remembering houses and rooms, we learn to abide within ourselves. Gaston Bachelard, The Poetics of Space. 1. I often dream about my childhood living room. I rarely dream about any other room in the house. The living room is the specific physical space my unconscious mind takes me. I have read that when we dream about a childhood home, we are really continuing to process aspects of ourselves that were developed there, perhaps making a space to feel those original feelings, or to feel them in different ways. I was sitting in this room when I found out my dad was dead. Unknown to 8-year-old me, he had been missing for a few days after checking himself out of a psychiatric facility. Family friends were over for a barbecue to take my mom's mind off of this possible reality when the phone rang. My uncle on the line, telling my mom that his body had been found. Your daddy's dead. I didn't cry. I screamed. The place of trauma is often complicated, populated with warm memories as well. The light flowing in from the big picture window, looking out onto Richardson Bay, reading in front of the fireplace, listening to my brother practice the piano, countless toasts, songs, and silly stories on Christmas Eves, my mom's 40th birthday party, and my mom and stepmom's Thanksgiving wedding reception. This living room was the physical place where the deep connection with people who became other parents to me began. My particular version of poet Dana Ward's Many Gendered Mothers of My Heart. I am someone with many mothers of my heart, someone who desperately needs those many mothers. I needed to know that even though people who loved me had and would abandon me, others would step in and want to stay. 2. He was reading the paper, sitting in his well-worn spot on the couch, when he looked up and almost nonchalantly told you that he wasn't going to speak with you anymore. He said it as if he were telling you to turn off the television, very matter of fact. You stood there frozen for a moment, literally stunned by his words and implication. You can't do that, you said, to him, to the unwritten parental code, to a sense of ethics that filled all of the philosophy manuscripts he made you study. But he just looked back at his newspaper, and you were dismissed. You were part of his past now. You had always had a fraught relationship, much more so than the relationship between him and your sister, but you could always get him laughing again. But on the couch that day, somehow his switch had turned off, and he excised you from his life, like a scorned lover who cuts out faces from old photographs. You didn't see him for almost 20 years. You ran into him on the street in Frankfurt, a city you never meant to end up in, when you were pregnant with your son. He looked at you with his mouth agape like he was seeing a ghost. What are you doing here? You hadn't come here looking for him. You had long ago stopped looking for what didn't want to be found. A few years later, when your mama told you he was dead, you broke down and sobbed for 10 minutes straight. Your emotions surprised you. You had barely seen him since that day on the couch decades ago. You had already said goodbye to him many times since. You have spent so many hours explaining to yourself why he had chosen to leave. You had reminded yourself over and over that you are not to blame and made peace with his behavior. But his death was absolute. There would be no reconciliation. There's a concept in psychology called counterfactual thinking, our tendencies as humans to think about other possible alternatives to events that have already taken place. Sometimes we focus on the alternate realities with regret, sometimes with relief, sometimes as a reminder to do better next time. What if we could rewind the tape of our lives and make a different choice? What would have happened if you had asked him to tea on that day in Frankfurt? Even though many years had passed, you were longing for him to admit that he had been mistaken. You would have been willing to quietly acknowledge your past hurts and forge a new future together. I know you felt cowardly, that in response to his silence you caved, but you couldn't handle a fresh rejection, and so you became strangers again. In her poem, Mistaken Self-Portrait as Demeter in Paris, Megan O'Rourke writes, quote, "You can only miss someone when they are still present to you. The absent will only be absent when they are forgotten," end quote. You don't know which you want to be. The you who will forever miss him and your could-have-beens, or the you who has forgotten him and doesn't even have your loss to hold on to. 3. The poet Eleni Siciliano says that, quote, "Biology is remembering. Our cells remember ancient chemical interactions pre-life, and our limbs remember salamanders," end quote. The home itself may not remember, but it helps us remember prior traumas, ancient tastes and smells, people we have known, people we have been. As Judith Butler reminds us in her afterword to David Kazanjian and David Eng's Loss, quote, "This past is not actually past in the sense of over, since it continues as an animating absence in the presence," end quote. In their video for We Used to Wait, the band Arcade Fire taps into the sentiment with the help of Google Earth. Before the video starts, we as the viewer type our childhood address into the computer. The music video starts as music videos always do, but then with the help of technology, our childhood home, our childhood street, our childhood views become part of the video. The combination of the music, the lyrics, and sense of home is extremely visceral and moving. Our houses and our childhoods are here all along, an animating absence. Passing the time while waiting for brunch to arrive on a busy Saturday morning, my mom shows my then 5-year-old daughters photos of themselves as infants and toddlers. They squeal and coo, already nostalgic about their past selves. My mom swipes her finger, and there is my dad as a 17-year-old boy, beaming in his fake tuxedo on senior portrait day, beautiful smile and bright eyes belying his inner turmoil. "I met him," Zoe exclaims. "Oh, sweetheart, he died many years ago when I was a little girl, but he would have loved you so much. If I know you, I met him." I don't remember the sound of his voice, but I know that right after his death, I could still hear it in its cadence. But like his scent, his voice receded. He died the year answering machines were starting to become widely used. He died long before cell phones existed. I don't have a physical memento of his voice to help keep it present for me. Perhaps I've forgotten that I remember. Every now and then, someone or something reminds me that part of his essence remains housed in me. Thank you.
Wow. Hey, I said we'd end at 8:30. It's 8:32. Thank you, Jen, so much. That was great. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This was our first CAP virtual event. I was very nervous about doing a virtual event until I hooked up with Mickey. And she, as soon as I knew she was going to take over the technical part, I stopped having dreams in the middle of the night. And I look forward to sharing more of our programs virtually. I'm happy to have this technology that can bring us together. If anyone has any questions for any of the writers, you can type them into the chat right now, and I'll read them. And while that's happening, I just want to tell you that if you go to springrights.org, and Rights is WRITES, you'll see the full lineup for the full lineup that's there was the lineup for the May event. So the times and the dates and the locations are moot. And I hope to preserve as many of those events as possible during a weekend in November. And so I'm going to have the workshops, the panels, the readings. Hopefully some can be live, some can be pre-recorded. And I want to incorporate audience participation. We will try to do as much as we can with the original event in November. So I hope you can come to that as well. And, oh look, Megan, are you back? Unmute Megan. Yay. Megan was out for a while because her internet is bad. Megan or Hardy, do you want to say anything?
Sure, I just missed a very little bit. I've been here most of the time. Robin, yay. You did a beautiful job. This was really great.
What'd I do?
Thanks everyone who's been listening, everyone who's been speaking. It's really been wonderful personally for me to hear all of this evening, and I'm grateful to have had the chance to be with you. And thanks for all the donations. I've been watching them come through, so that's wonderful.
Yay.
Thank you.
So I don't see any questions coming in, so I will end this event. Bob, you mentioned Google Hangouts. I've never done Google Hangouts. Are you kidding? All right.
Wait,
so,
Robin, we did have one question. One question was, is the recording going to be available? And I believe I can say yes, that it's going to be on Facebook.
Thank you for reminding me that, yes. We have recorded this event, and I will put it up on, as soon as I create a YouTube channel for CAP, it'll be there. It will be on Facebook Live, and we will definitely put it on our website. So yes, it'll be out there. Oh, Hardy's muted.
A big thanks again to Mickey and Robin. They're both, acting like octopi behind the scenes. Yeah, they're doing everything. It's really wonderful.
So I will end this event tonight on good, happy feelings. And I hope to see you all again soon. And thank you again to all of the writers that joined us tonight.